Hello everyone, welcome to this video tutorial on a wish tree. The wish tree is a Neurographica algorithm that I have created especially for this video tutorial. Okay, the wish tree could just as easily be turned into your goal tree or your dream tree, but I would say it's closer to a wish and a dream than it is to a goal. I look at goal as something that you can break down and make it into steps and follow them as actionable items, like how you would learn in a goal setting lesson, but we're not going into that today. We're just doing a wish tree or a dream tree, you would say. So think of one wish that you could use for this Neurographica algorithm. So last video tutorial we talked about a Neurotree, how it looks like and what it has. So you know that there are resources at the bottom and there are fruits at the top. That's about it. And I deliberately kept it simple so that I can explain more about the Neurotree concept in this tutorial. So the first thing is the bottom of the tree. That's where your resources sit. And it also signifies your past. Okay, now what are your resources? Your resources can be anything that you can tap on. Your home, a personality trait of yours, your family, your friends, your relatives, or a quality that you have, like your strength, your charisma, or your resourcefulness, or your patience and your persistence. These are just some examples of what you can use as your resource. Even your computer hardware that you use, the pens, the pencils, the art materials, can be a resource. Okay? So next, we're going to be talking about the trunk of the tree. In the previous tutorial, I didn't talk anything about the trunk. The trunk actually represents now, and you. So if you were to be drawing a full-blown Neurotree algorithm, you will be drawing yourself here and what you want to achieve here. So in this case, you would be drawing yourself here and your wish or your dream in the part of the trunk. Okay? And then next is the crown, where you have your fruits, your leaves. And in Neurotree, if you really feel like you want to draw some leaves and your crown, please go ahead. You don't have to, but you can. So it represents your future. Okay? The fruits are what you will get when your wish or your dream comes true. For example, like if you wish to have a big fat bank account, then one of your fruits would be financial stability, financial independence, or whatever you want that comes out of having a big fat bank account. Or you could draw the wish of being out of this COVID-19 situation. Then your fruits will be, what do you think is going to happen when this COVID-19 situation is open? Freedom to move about, not knocked down, don't have to wear a mask, etc., etc. Okay? So now in previous tutorial, we've already talked about the flow of a Neurotree from the bottom to the top, and I've insisted that you should not rotate your paper so that it's easier for you to paint when you're doing the Neurotree. Okay? It's because you want your brain to register the upward movement of the Neurotree. So once you have registered the upward movement of the Neurotree, because it is the flow of how this Neurotree should be, is the metaphorical concept, not the actual flow. Your brain registers this metaphor of upward movement. So in this case, it's the upward movement flow of time and energy from the bottom to the top. Alright? So, and today we can relax the coloring rules a little bit, as in when you are coloring your resources, when you're coloring yourself or your wish and the fruits, you can rotate the paper in any way that you want. And for those of you who have done deeper research into Neurographica, you would know that there are other shapes that you could use, like the square and the triangle. In fact, there's more than just a square and triangle, but I won't get into it in this session. In fact, I would encourage you not to use anything except circles, because circles are the safest shapes to use in any Neurographica algorithm. You can use them to represent anything when you're using Neurographica algorithm. Okay? Because you will feel most comfortable with them. After you've experienced Neurographica, you will kind of agree to some extent. Maybe not totally, but yeah. You know, and when you're doing this algorithm, you may feel something along when you're doing your drawing, even before you're coloring. You might feel something. Like, for example, many times when I draw a Neurotree, especially with a goal in there, I usually feel something when I'm doing the rounding. Not immediately, after a while. It's like there's a surge of some kind of positive energy. It's like a weird thing, but it's a good thing because you feel good. Like you feel really empowered to go out and do whatever you wanted to do or you need to do. So it's a very positive feeling. You will have to take note of, be very aware of the whole process when you're going through the Neurotree, and take note of that. So as a result of that, there is actually an extra step apart from just this drawing, that's outside of this drawing. That is to take notes, whether in recorded form or on a separate piece of paper. That's up to you. Take note of what you're feeling, what you're thinking as you're drawing and when you're coloring. Okay, I know at some point you will probably not be aware of as much because you would be so focused on the drawing and the coloring that you wouldn't be thinking of anything else except the drawing and coloring. But at the beginning stages is when you would be thinking of many stuff or a lot of stuff when you're just starting to draw. That is when you should take note. Okay, take notes. Be aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And most of all, remember to breathe. And one last but very important thing if you have many wishes you would like to draw Neurotrees of, please do only one per day, because you don't want your brain to get confused. Okay, only one wish Neurotree per day. So we're gonna recap the important things to remember before we start the drawing part of this tutorial. Do only one wish per day. You can do multiple Neurotrees of the same wish. That's okay. But you can only do one wish tree per day. Please. Very important. Like I mentioned before, you don't want your brain to get confused. 2. Take breaks only after you've completed your roundings. So after you've drawn your Neurotree and then you've done your roundings, you can put it aside and do coloring the next day or whatever, or go do whatever. Of course, I'm not talking about, oh yeah, I really need to go to the bathroom, but I can't because I'm in the middle of rounding. Please go to the bathroom and then come back and continue with your rounding. Okay? You can't really stop you for, nature's call. But other than that, try not to take any other breaks before you finish with rounding your Neurotree. Okay, and then the other thing is, always resist the urge to rotate your paper, except when you're coloring your fruits, your anything that's circle. Inside the circle, if you're starting to color inside the circles, like your resource, your fruits, yourself, or your wish, you can rotate it. But beyond that, no, especially when you're coloring the upward movement from the roots to the trunk to the crown. Resist the urge, the temptation to rotate your paper. Okay? And then keep track of what you're thinking and feeling as you're working on your artwork. There's a mistake here. Okay? So keep track of what you're thinking and feeling as you're working on your artwork. And last but not least, remember to breathe. Alright? Alright, so we're gonna start drawing now. In case you're wondering where this background came from, I didn't want to bore anybody with how I did the background, so I didn't record that part because it was a pretty involved process, because I had to use colored pencils to get it the way I like it, watercolor pencils actually. And then I have to flatten the paper because it curled up pretty bad. So I had to flatten it. It took me like a couple of days to flatten this, so I didn't want to bore anybody with how I did it. So if you're interested, get ready for some work. Maybe you can do it faster, not me. Alright, so I am going, first of all, when we start, remember that this is a Neurotree algorithm. We're focusing more on the algorithm now than the art part. If you can do both, but the algorithm part is a little more important in this tutorial. So first, find the center of the paper. You use a pencil to help you find the center of the paper, and then after that you can erase the mark. I use a 2H pencil because it's lighter. and then I just erase most of the marks off to where I can just see the paper. I can just see the center. Okay, so the next step is remember, this is the center of your universe. The rest of the universe is outside this sheet of paper, and if you want to add on to make your Neurotree bigger, you can, but if you already have a completed background like me, you're kind of confined to this sheet of paper. Alright, so just for today, yes, I'm going to be confined to this little sheet of paper here. It's an A4 size, so it's not that little. So next step is I'm going to use my marker. You can use any size you want. I am also going to use a mixture of sizes. Also, if you like, you can try using these flat shape markers. They're like flat. The nice thing about this is they give you, like when you draw a circle, you have thin and thick lines at the same time. Sometimes when you draw lines, you see, it makes your drawing a little bit more interesting, but that's the art part. So you don't really have to do it. I'm not going to use this today. So I'm just going to vary the thickness and the thinness of the lines with just 2 of these mark pens. The reason I'm using Posca pens is because they're light fast. They're more light fast than these. And definitely this is more light fast than the alcohol markers like this. Okay, these aren't as versatile as these, but these are more light fast than this. And even though these aren't as light fast, they will still probably stick around your art for quite a few years until you're really sick of looking at it before it'll fade. But they do fade faster than these. Like if you expose these to the sun, they'll fade really fast. And I do have alcohol marker drawings on my vertical surfaces that has been sitting around for about 10 years. They don't look as vibrant as they used to be, but they haven't shown much signs of fading. For the darker colors, the reds and the oranges, yeah, you can see them fading. So anyways, back to this drawing. To start, you need to draw a circle near the center of your paper to represent yourself. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do. So the circle shouldn't be too small, should be about this size. Okay, and then you can write your name down in there if you want, which I'm going to. You can write it in the circle or outside of it. You're not really going to see it after you're done with this drawing anyways. You can write them this small, or you can write them bigger or smack right across the center. Up to you. Any way you want it. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. Okay? Now, the next step, I'm going to use a thinner one. Oh, actually, before I go into the next step, Now you want to draw the shape of the tree. Okay, the outer shape of the tree. So remember what I said in the last tutorial? Draw from the bottom all the way to the top of the page. Your very first 2 lines. Okay, so if you find that your trunk is a bit too narrow, later on you can attenuate it, as in like making it slightly thicker. Alright, so next, draw a circle representing your wish or your dream. Make that circle connect with yours, and it shouldn't be it should not be bigger than the circle that represents you. So I'm gonna draw something like this. Okay, it doesn't have to touch the side at this point, because you can always connect it later. And write what it is in your circle, outside your circle. Just label it. So the wish I have, or the dream I have, is to live in joy. Okay? Next, draw another circle somewhere here near your circle, again touching you, which is the circle, and don't label it. So I'm going to put it here just to balance it. Okay? And what this is your hidden helper. Something that you don't know where it's coming from. Okay, like a little helper, an invisible helper somewhere, an unknown helper somewhere, where you don't know where they are, but they're doing their job so to make your life easier. Alright? So now it's time to start. No, not time to draw your tree yet, but time to kind of attenuate your tree a little bit. Like, I think I want to have my roots slightly wider. Okay, I would like to have a wider crown as well. I think the trunk is fine. So you can start drawing a few neural lines up. You're going to be drawing more neural lines later, but I'll let you know. Just draw a couple, passing through all 3 circles if possible. Something like that. Okay. Okay. Next, I'm going to draw my resources. I'm going to use the thicker one. Okay, your resources. This time you have to label your resources. And they can be anything in your life that is going to help you achieve your wishes or get your wishes. I mean, one of the things that I can think of is if if you want, for me, because I'm a Buddhist, so I'm going to name the Buddha and Guan Yin as two of my resources because they give me strength and patience. Look, strength and patience can be your resource too. So I'm going to label this as such. Okay, and then next I'm going to draw my other resources, like my friends. And my family. And my relatives. Oops, wrong pen. Okay, then I'm going to put some more like social networking. And the hardware that I use. And then I'm going to put one unknown resource, a big one, and not name it. Okay, those are my resources. Now, next, it's the fruits. Okay, so if I get to my dreams, what are the fruits of my dreams? Like, what is it? Of course, the big one is being in joy. So I'll draw a big one here. So I would like to have another one, which is probably somewhere here. Okay. Another one here. Alright, so I'm gonna name this big one Health. Financial independence. Good connections. And maybe I'll leave the rest blank. Okay, a little tip here when you're drawing your fruits. A Neurographica instructor once said, don't load your crown with too many fruits. Make sure there's space to move around if you don't want to be too busy when you actually get what you want. Okay, so I'm just passing that along. But if you choose to load your crown with many fruits, you don't mind being busy at all, please carry on. I mean, I'm just sharing information. Okay? Now, so you want to make sure you have lines going through every single circle. Okay? The thickness or the thinness of the lines does not matter. They have to go through all the circles. Oops. Okay, the more lines you draw going through your circles, the better. Means you got a lot of connections. So I'm going to use the thinner pen now to draw the lines. Just kind of drawing lines through wherever I think I want to see lines to make it look better, that's all. So there's no real particular reason why some lines should be there and some shouldn't, except for the fact that when I see a circle it doesn't really have enough lines, like over here, then I will add some. So it's okay to have unlabeled fruits or resources because you don't know what they are. When they happen, you will know. When they find you, let them find you, in a manner of speaking. Okay, so I am. Hang on a second. So I'm just going to do rounding now. I think I'm pretty happy with what I see. Alright? So in case you're wondering why I have my drawing tilted almost horizontal, it's because I'm seated slanted, like if you can tell from my hand positioning. So I think I'm done rounding. I'm just checking. Okay, I think I'm done. Well, maybe not. And I just realized I forgot to do something, but I can do it now. Alright, so I should have energized the resources earlier, but it's still okay to do it now. So the way how you energize resources, let me get a piece of clean paper so I can show you. Give me a second. Okay, so actually the way when you're energizing resources, this is what you do. You have a resource, okay, and then you have maybe lines going through it or not, or if it's fresh, like you just drew it, and then there's no lines going through it. So you can actually energize the resource before or after. It's fine. So basically what you do is you draw neurographic lines around your resources. Okay, around that resource. That's energizing. So if you, like I said, your visual comparison, a resource, a regular resource, okay, versus a resource that is energized. Which feels like it has more energy. So remember I told you in the second video that neural lines are also energy. That's why. And remember you need to round them. These are a bit too small so I can't show you. So let me say I made bigger stuff here. Okay? Then I need to round them. Okay, I need to round all these things too. Still looks like a circle. Alright? But in a case where things like this, where it's too small to do any rounding, then you just kind of paint them in. And then you're done. Okay? So we're gonna do that to our resources here. So we're just energizing, so you can turn the paper whichever way you want, because you're basically done with the drawing already. You can round them as you go or not. Choice is yours. choose to round them as I go so I don't have to do it again later. Okay. Alright, and we're done with the activating of resources. Energizing a resource is also called activating them. So I don't know if you notice while you're doing it. I mean, for me personally, when I'm drawing this, when I was doing the rounding, I felt a surge of positive energy coming over me. Like, I don't know what it is, but it felt like really good. Like I feel like I was really empowered to do something, you know? So I hope you have the same experience. And we aren't actually complete with the drawing, but if you have a background like this and you feel like, well, I'm done coloring, that's fine. Okay? You do whatever you feel like that's what you need, then that's okay. So for me, I don't think I'm done with this. So next would be coloring. So I'm pretty much done with the coloring, except usually I would say yes, we're done. But this time, because it's an algorithm, we need to do more. So one of the steps that I didn't use before when I was in the previous video is called integration, and you might have seen these in the sample that I posted on the page, Neuroart Alchemy page, where you have fingers of energy shooting out. Except today I'm using, we'll be doing that this time. It's called integration or integration, where you join what you drew to the rest of the universe by going through the edge of the page. Okay, so instead of doing that, I got this idea from another instructor. This wasn't how I was taught, but she gave me the idea of drawing kind of like a sun around here, and then color it as such with fingers of energy shooting out. So what she says is it's like a higher power illuminating whatever you have drawn. Okay? Well, I mean, you can think of it in whatever way you see fit. Okay, so I'm gonna start. You can draw this with another pen. I'm using a Uniball Signal pen, bronze color, to do it. After I've sketched the circle out with a color pencil. Now you can do this with whatever way you see fit. The way that instructor I mentioned did was she drew everything with a colored pencil. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to do the integration now. The circle doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so if I happen to draw a perfect circle, then it's just by luck. Okay. Oh yeah, one more thing. You know how in the previous tutorial I emphasized the need to always keep your drawing vertical when you're doing the coloring of the trunks? You can move. Now you can start rotating as soon as you're going down to the resource and the fruits and the center of the trunk when you're coloring the circular things. Okay, your resource, your fruit, and the circular things in the middle. I don't really have a term for it. Okay, yourself, maybe. You can rotate it whichever way that is easier for you once you get to that stage, because your upward thing's already done. Okay? So we got 2 more steps to go before we are considered done. So next, I want to the next step is the stage we call fixation. What it is you're trying to emphasize those things that are important to your drawing. So for me, I think all but one of the resources is really important to me. So when you use gold, you gotta use a different color than anything that you've used so far. Forgot to explain. I'm using gold, so you can use any color you want, as long as it's not one of the color that's already on here. Also, this uniball signal pen brought. You can use whatever you have on hand that would draw, even a marker. Even for these, you can use colored pencils. And these, I don't think colored pencils will go over well on the markers unless you're using the alcohol markers. It's best if you use like a pigment marker or something. Uniball signal, like in some of these thick areas with a lot of color pencils, they will not stick. So just use whatever you have on hand. Then you gotta draw a line. For me, all these circles needs to be connected, so you need to draw a line or a few lines connecting them. You gotta follow whatever lines you already have plotted out. So for this fixation, you can't draw new lines. It's okay if it goes over something that you didn't plan. It's okay if you made a mistake like I just did. We're gonna round any intersection that you do. You see, this part is where there's a lot of colored pencils over and I'm having problems getting over it. Okay, so the last step, field lines. Field lines, according to Neurographica, gives you connection to the divine. Okay, so there are 2 ways of drawing steel. There's two ways of drawing field lines. You can either draw the field lines independent of anything that you have here, but this lady that I mentioned who showed me this technique mentioned that you could also draw field lines following some of the lines that you've drawn. So what she says is that it's like the field lines are going with the flow of whatever you have there and working through it. Okay, now if you decide to draw independent field lines, let me show you an example later. Let me do this first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw field lines this way up. It's advisable for a tree algorithm to draw the field lines following the flow of whatever you've drawn. Okay, so minimum of 3 field lines, and for drawing this size I would say maybe a maximum of 5, but I usually just draw 3. It's up to you. Okay, I need a marker because this isn't cutting it. Alright, yeah, I need this marker I'm using is a pigment marker. So I'm just kind of tracing lines. I need 3 lines, and it's okay for few lines to cross. So in this case, the few lines I'll explain later after I draw. So with this method of drawing few lines, you are already connected. So you don't really need to connect. If you draw few lines on your own, like outside, independent of any of these lines, then you have to connect them by rounding them. And you don't have to round all of them, just a few of them. Okay? So alright, let me say something. The few lines this lady I mentioned showed me was actually she just took the same black color and emphasized some of the lines. She said those are few lines. Okay, so I took that and kind of modified that a bit and used what I used to do and this together to make the few lines. So if I drew the few lines this way, I don't have to make any connection because it's following the lines and it's already connected. But if you want to do it, nobody's stopping you. So let me just show you. Okay, say, okay, let me connect to this line here. So like I mentioned before, few lines don't have to be 100% connected. So let me show you, let me get some examples of what the other method of drawing fill lines looks like. So like in this example, you see these are the fill lines. These red lines are the fill lines. They are draw independent. It doesn't follow any line, and you just draw it. Okay, this is a different algorithm that I probably will not be teaching yet. Maybe in the future, I don't know. But this is an example. Now, in this case, this fill line is 100% connected. Let me find one that isn't. Yep. Okay. This example, this brown line are the fill lines. You see, I skipped connections here. Okay, see the brown lines? Not all of them is connected. See, I didn't connect here, I didn't connect here. I just connect them in like 2 or 3 areas. Okay, so that's the other method of drawing fill lines. Let me see if I can get something clearer. Okay, this is a Neurotree. Right, you see the fill lines here? Okay, these are also fill lines. And you don't have, and it doesn't follow any lines, but they are neural lines, and only a few places are connected. Not all of them are. Okay? So after this, we're done. So we've drawn the fill lines. So the new concepts in this tutorial is the integration part. Oh yeah, let me show you the integration. Let me do this. Let's continue this. So the new concepts are the integration, the fixation, and the fill lines. Of course, the algorithm. It's a lot to take in. That's why I decided to split the lesson up into like two video tutorials, so there's less to take in. So if you notice today, I didn't really have to explain much about how you draw this and that and all that, but just color it, and that was the main aim. Alright. Compare. These are the integration. These integration. Draw a few lines connecting to the end of the paper. The integration. Integration is connection to the rest of the universe. So you're connecting your tree to the rest of the universe. But I've changed it in this algorithm to be this way. I thought this looks way better than this. So I don't know if you agree, but if you like the fill line integration this way, feel free to have another go at this algorithm, but do the fill lines do the fill lines this way and do the integration this way, and see which way you like it better. Okay, otherwise the whole thing, ignore the different shapes here. I will be having another video tutorial on what all these shapes are and what they mean. So it's the safest right now if you stick to circles. Alright? And with that, we're done. Thank you for tuning in. And I will talk to you again in the next tutorial. Bye!